Yeah, but now that we are allegedly live, how have you been? You've been very
Really good,
busy, huh?
man. It's been really busy. Yeah. I'm living in El Salvador right now, as you may know, so
Hmm.
it's pretty cool
Yeah,
down here.
yeah. How is it? How's it compared to other places in the region you've lived in?
Well, El Salvador is very interesting because uh, I've been in many places, and this
Hmm.
is the place that, in terms of like nature and how it feels just living
Hmm.
here, mostly resembles my home country, Venezuela. So I really feel at
Yeah.
home here. Like the first day I got here, I was like, yeah, if I were to fall asleep in Caracas and wake up
Hmm.
here in San Salvador, I'd be like, yeah, I didn't even move, So not until you start, going places, you say, oh, this is different country. So it's really
Yeah.
fun to live in a place that's so close to home in terms of nature, the beach, the weather. So
Yeah.
all that stuff, it's really really similar. So it's really nice.
Yeah. And how's the tech scene? Because I mean, I'm sure like the Venezuelan tech scene has suffered in recent years anyway, but the Salvadoran one obviously because of all the investment and the bat signal out to crypto people to come like live there and work there. It must have had some changes. So is that well developed?
Yeah, that's a great question because when I say this, I'm careful about saying, hey, in terms of nature, weather, etc., not in terms of system. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really interesting that uh, you can be on opposite streams, on opposite sides of like the political aisles, and like one place is like economic collapse and people start
Yes.
using crypto, and the other country is like the government embraces crypto and people are using crypto. So it's like on the extremes is where Bitcoin and crypto shine. So that's very interesting to see.
Yeah. Although I mean, I guess it's probably better in the place where it's actually supported by
Absolutely,
local.
absolutely, absolutely
Yeah.
sure. That's definitely the case.
Yeah. So has it been easier, do you think, to live on crypto, like spend it in day to day life more in El Salvador than it was at the best parts in Venezuela,
That's a
or
great
is it
question.
similar?
Uh, um, So I would argue yes and no. So yes, in terms of if you're trying to live on crypto and spend
Mm-hmm.
directly on merchants, it's way easier here. And obviously, the scale that's things are happening here, it's countrywide. It's in the
Mm-hmm.
law compared to in Venezuela, which were more grassroots efforts. Now in Venezuela, there were always options where the merchant didn't need to accept it, but you could still pay with it via some,
Mm-hmm.
middle thing that does the conversion or whatever, partners, gift cards, things like that. And so, in terms of you being able to spend, I wouldn't think the difference would be too much. But in terms of actual people accepting it directly, I would
Mm-hmm.
think yeah, it's a much bigger difference. Even though it's still, you know, there's a funny thing that happened here, and I've been hearing people talk about this uh, because it's in the law, and so it means that
Mm-hmm.
people have to accept it. And so
Yeah.
I just found it funny that even though it's true and the law says you have to, most people didn't read the full thing. And there's another article in the law, like three,
Mm-hmm.
three or four items down, where it says that, hey, it's true, you have to accept it, but only if you have the resources and you've had the education to. So if you haven't had that, you're not required to, which means there's no penalty for you not accepting it. And so
Mm-hmm.
I see a lot of videos of people who come to El Salvador and try to buy
Mm-hmm.
some pupusas from the lady in the corner, and she won't accept yet because she hasn't had the education or whatever. She hasn't, uh, uh, learned how
Mm-hmm.
to do this thing. And then people say, hey, people are not accepting. But then if she had been forced to,
Mm-hmm.
uh, then she would be accepting. And so then the criticism would be, hey, they're forcing people to do it. So it's just funny to see how, it's always going to be something to say. People are always going to have something to say, and that's fine. But I just think that's very interesting that there's not really, like forced to do it. Like if you haven't had the chance to learn it, you're good.
Yeah, it's funny how like it's both are kind of true. You know, it's kind of like you are forced to, but then you're also people don't always accept it. And it's just funny how um, it kind of makes me think of um, it makes me unfortunately think of like I don't like legal systems. Like I don't like government systems. I don't like government period because there's always this with companies putting out policies and best practices and things like that. There's always like, well, there's always leeway. There's always the ability to just say I won't. When you have a law, when government puts something in place, reality is still the same. They understand that a certain percentage of people will do what they say. It's not everyone, but then you have this like weird they reality is gray area, but the problem is they implement it in a very black and white kind of a place where make people scared for their own safety and things. And
Correct.
it's a little annoying, but that's neither here nor there. We should probably
Yeah.
get this thing actually going and like run the intro thing. So let me do that real
All
quick
right.
and we'll go. So, hey everyone, happy Friday to you. Welcome back to the Digital Cash Rundown. I'm joined for the first time in a little while by my friend and the one and only Lorenzo Rey. How's it going, man?
Hey, Joel. Nice to see you, man. Nice to be here again. I think the last time I was here was like a year ago or something. So it's
It
cool
was
to be
something
back.
like that. I think it was like
Yeah.
August or something. Maybe September,
I
October,
think it was
November, December,
June
January.
probably, but
Yeah, something like that. Well, anyway,
something
before
like
we
that.
get into the things, everyone always remember to like and subscribe and stuff. And then if you want to join live super chat, cointr.ee/the desert links. And then there you go. All right. So because we're sort of talking about the El Salvador type thing and the I guess the pre-show chat or whatever you want to call it, it might make sense to go into the lightning subject first. I just saw some,
Cool.
I saw some article, and honestly, I think it's kind of like there's not really a news story out of the news article that kind of grasped at some like Reddit users and just were like, oh, it's a news story. It's not really a news story, but like nothing really happened. But it's an interesting subject about Binance and Coinbase are silent on Bitcoin Lightning, and the community tries to understand why. The Lightning Network implementation may be against business plans of some crypto exchanges or simply not a priority for others, several community members suggested. So, Robinhood apparently announced a Lightning integration and saying with BitPay and Kraken, but Binance, Coinbase, and FTX have all just not really said anything about
Yeah.
implementing it or not. And so people have been speculating about, why and stuff. So what's your general opinion on that? Like, why do you think that it's
Well,
been intentional or what do you think?
that's a good question because, and I want to probably talk a little more broadly
Hmm.
about Lightning before tackling this specific subject with
Yeah.
Binance and Coinbase, because I've changed my mind about Lightning over the years, and I think you have been one of the people who have helped me
Hmm.
change my mind about Lightning because you went, down the rabbit hole, setting up the notes and
Hmm.
talking about it. And so your opinion was something to be good because back in the day, block size wars,
Hmm.
whatever, it was fully anti-Lightning.
Yeah.
But as years went by and I saw some of the improvements to the protocol and some of the new things, so I went to the rabbit hole myself, in terms of how the HTLC contracts work and all the improvements that are going on there, Taproot or whatever, the things that it enables. So it's changed my mind, and I think a lot of the
Hmm.
people in the industry have had that uh, moment go as well. So I was at the Miami conference, last
Hmm.
week. I was talking to a bunch of companies people that I knew before, and they're now telling me, "Hey, we're now implementing Lightning. We're going to launch it really soon." People who are doing tech companies, integrations, software, APIs, that kind of stuff. Now, with Binance and Coinbase specifically, and even FTX, uh, why are they not doing the same thing? So either they are actually doing it, but they have like their own team inside working on their own implementation. They just haven't said anything about it,
Yeah.
or it might uh, actually interfere with some of their business. I don't know about this really. Like I'm not sure, but I do know that at least Binance is promoting Binance Pay really strongly, like as a
Mm-hmm.
centralized payment solution. I even seen back in Venezuela there are people. I mean, those guys are doing their homework. Like there are small shops in like the countryside in Venezuela, and they have Binance logos, and they take a bunch of crypto using Binance Pay. And so maybe for them, Lightning is something that I don't know, somewhat competes with their own centralized solution. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure. But what I do know is that a lot of companies and a lot of people that I know in the industry who were not really into Lightning are now actually developing their own Lightning implementations. And certainly here in El Salvador, I mean, I use Lightning every single day. So
Mm-hmm.
I really think that if you're doing Bitcoin payments, you have to jump into Lightning. So yeah, maybe something to do with their business model, or maybe just lag. You know, a lot of people, at least in Coinbase, I think they also, you know, were not happy back in 2017 with the block size war, etc. And a lot of us who were kind of on that aisle were more skeptical about Lightning. So maybe some of their higher management just didn't look at it up until recently. So I don't know. I guess that's my general opinion on it.
Yeah. So this is kind of a funny thing. I first off, yeah, you know, whatever whatever exchanges plan to implement, it's always in their best financial interest, of course. And there's clearly something that's kind of blocking that. The thing about Lightning is it's been, I think, getting exchanges to accept Lightning to a certain extent is maybe, I think it's kind of almost politicized, because depends on why does an exchange need to accept Lightning. First off, you can get a Bitcoin transaction through for like 10 cents these days.
Yeah.
So you don't really need to do that for and it's like for your coffee, okay, maybe. But like when you're sending to an exchange, do you really need Lightning? And it's mostly like you can do all your trading on we're talking about centralized exchanges here. You can do all your trading on centralized exchanges, and then you can withdraw whenever you're ready. And it's like, well, withdraw directly to Lightning might be a convenience if you want to go take it right to a spending wallet and start doing that. But if you want to do it to a hardware wallet, which is, I think, one thing that was kind of funny though, here. This one guy here, he just said, I personally want to use the Lightning Network to transfer all my Bitcoin trading to cold storage.
Come on.
That's my point. It's like that's why my
Yeah.
point by being politicized. People don't know what the hell they want to use it for. They just everyone has to use Lightning. I understand when they were trying to get exchanges to batch transactions, which I'm not a fan of that for like privacy things, but whatever. But because they're like, oh, you're using up too much block space. Okay, whatever. But like Lightning would probably introduce more on-chain transactions to the exchange than it would reduce, or it would be like a net zero probably. Just because like there's not even like a reason for it. And unless you're saying like you're using your exchange to pay directly from the exchange, in which case like I kind of don't think that's a good idea at all. You know, I think you should hold your own funds and not use it like it's a bank.
Absolutely right. So that's a very good point. And some of these companies in these articles, for
Mm-hmm.
example, for Coinbase or even FTX, I think that totally makes sense. And Bitcoin itself, I mean, has had some improvements in terms of like the new batch 32 addresses, the ones that start with BC1.
Mm-hmm.
Like they really take a whole lot less space in the block. And so you, as you say, you can pay 10 cents. If you're using the legacy addresses that start with one, you might pay $1 or $2, which is still hugely expensive. But with
Mm-hmm.
the best 32 addresses, sometimes you pay 5 cents or 10 cents. So they really don't
Yeah,
need to. And in the case of Binance, I think Binance is big enough where I wouldn't consider them just an exchange. You know, they have so many services and so
they're
many stuff.
everything.
They're everything, and they're really trying to be, which I'm not the biggest fan, just like you said. But a lot of people are using Binance like a bank and paying with it, you
Mm-hmm.
know, with Binance Pay and everything. And so for them, uh, if they're trying to be a payment, operator, uh, I do think that if you're trying to be payments and you're using Bitcoin, you should definitely look into Lightning. But I don't know if they see that as a competitor to their own system. So maybe if I'm trying to just move Bitcoin into Binance to trade, I don't need Lightning. But if I am, I don't know, a grandmother and I don't want to hold my keys myself, and my nephew
Mm-hmm.
just told me, or my grandson just taught me how to use this thing, but I don't want to deal with, because that's the other thing. Like, we're all on the side of holding your own thing, but
Mm-hmm.
banks are not going to cease existing. There are a lot of people who are not comfortable being responsible for their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're granny and you are using this thing because it makes you feel safer and you forgetting your own
Mm-hmm.
keys, I mean, I think you should implement Lightning. So
Yeah, it's also uh, we have to think about overhead. Like, uh, whenever if you're an exchange and you're running, you're supporting a bunch of different assets, you have to, of course, integrate a new one. And Lightning is kind of a new asset. I mean, the base of it is Bitcoin, but it's a completely different structure, like technologically speaking, than just like
yeah,
you don't just run a node. You can't, and so while it's first off, the big thing, other than just complexity of integration, which always sucks, is you need extra capital like around just in order to send and receive transactions because the channels have to be funded. And so
yeah,
if that's cost, that's money you could have else somewhere else or you wouldn't need to have. And so that's a big cost just to let people
that's
like
true.
do that little hobby. But also when exchanges get attacked and hacked, it's always the hot wallet balance, right? And so they keep most of it in cold storage and keep like a hot wallet balance to process things. Lightning is all hot wallet. If you want to take
Yeah,
Bitcoin off of Lightning, then you have to spend a lot of time and you have to spend fees and on-chain transactions and stuff. So it just seems like a massive nightmare for people to do. And it's just so people can withdraw straight to their Lightning rather than you can already withdraw straight to a Lightning channel of a wallet you
yeah,
have.
definitely.
It's so like direct Lightning support is kind of like almost like a virtue signal amongst exchanges probably. And it's just like, oh yeah, see we got Lightning too, and like I'd really wonder how many people actually, kind of use it. And then of course, as you mentioned, there's a lot of exchanges have worked as off-chain scaling solutions for Bitcoin, basically, have worked as the
Correct.
scaling slash and payment rails, and now you're trying to like you're trying to have them basically run their business model twice, like just kind of have redundant but very different architecture, just so you can say, oh yeah, Lightning. So, I mean, I don't think honestly, Lightning is going to get super wide adoption on exchanges unless it becomes just such a ubiquitous way that people pay to where people aren't even using on-chain Bitcoin to even store their Bitcoin anymore. If it becomes that way, then I think exchanges will have to jump on. But in the meantime, I don't think it's going to be widely adopted.
Absolutely, and I think two things can be true at once. I think it's definitely true that uh, if you're an exchange and you just come up with, hey, we now have Lightning integrations, definitely a
Mm-hmm.
virtual signal thing. Like, it can give you a marketing push, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Uh, where in reality, if you are an exchange, you don't really need to support it because, as you said, if you are a Lightning user, the fact that your exchange does not support Lightning does not mean that you're
Mm-hmm.
incompatible. You can always withdraw from the exchange to your Lightning channel, and
Yeah.
increase the balance of your thing. So it's not like an incompatibility thing. You can always do that. So it's true that it can be that, but also I think it's also a bet because
Mm-hmm.
so right now Lightning it's still developing. You can use it for payments, but most wallets are still custodial or semi-custodial, and the user experience is not the best. But theoretically, Lightning could become something that it unlocks a bunch of new usability. And if some of these exchanges want to be more than an exchange, because we
Mm-hmm.
agree, if you're just an exchange, you don't need it. If you're trying to be crypto solutions, like Binance, who's trying to do a lot of things, you not having Lightning might set you back from competitors when you're trying to enable some new functionality in the future.
Yeah.
And we don't even know what that could look like, but you can imagine things like Lightning enables, streaming money, and so maybe some sort of subscription thing where people just pay per minute or pay per small, extremely small transaction, things like that have been theorized. But it might set you back. Now, the other thing is that there are ways in which these exchanges could enable Lightning without they having to do all the development themselves. I mean, just like with on-chain Bitcoin, a lot of, even wallets out there and services do not have their own nodes. Like they just use APIs from a third-party provider that does the on-chain transactions for them. That's how a lot of, businesses work. So a lot of these people who are announcing Lightning right now, I don't think most of them have a Lightning team developing on the Lightning protocol. I think they just plugged into whoever's the provider, like wallet or Satoshi or something. I believe the Exodus wallet enabled Lightning, and I was happy to see that. But then I believe, I might be wrong about this, but I believe they're using Wallet of Satoshi's APIs. I think they've said it themselves. Maybe I'm just speaking nonsense right now, but I do recall reading on the wallet that they're using a third-party provider. And so, I think if it's an overhead and you're just an exchange, you really don't need it. You just want a marketing push, you might do it for the lulz. If you think you can get some use out of it and you have a third-party provider, which allows you to just plug into some APIs and do it, then that's cool. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny how I really like to compare the growth of L2 on Bitcoin to L2 on Ethereum, because Ethereum needs a lot more help. Bitcoin users largely could just not use Bitcoin. They don't like to use it anyway, and it's just like, all right, well, they'll mess around with this little thing here, but it's only for occasional payments. Whereas Ethereum people are always using it for a million different things, and it's so expensive, and they kind of need that more. And I'm also wondering how are decentralized exchanges going to handle Lightning? I don't think they'll be able to, really. I mean, maybe I could be wrong, but it'll be very difficult, and that's kind of the way the world is moving, which it kind of brings back to the Binance point, because Binance, I think that Binance is probably one of the more savvy businesses in the entire space, and they figured out that the space is moving away from their business model, so they're just trying to run cheap knockoff of Ethereum or whatever else. They're migrating their centralized business into a decentralized network, and they're always going to kind of be in that world. So I don't know if Lightning is going to kind of fit into those plans, but I mean, you think about it, just have a Binance wrapped BNB token for Bitcoin, just transact with that instead. I mean, I think that's kind of what they're trying to do. So it could be super high throughput, but all that kind of stuff, but then they don't need to. It's just basically Lightning, but not not as cypherpunk righteous, but much more efficient. Probably that's probably the way it's going to end up going.
Yeah, I think for Binance, it might be a thing that it clashes with their own interests. Theoretically speaking, I do believe that you could have different tokens on Lightning, and maybe some decks can work in that way. I'm not really sure about that. I think that was the case, even though the space is mostly Bitcoin centric now. I do believe there was. I even think Strike had USDT on Lightning or something like that. I don't remember, but yeah, for Binance, I think it's probably clashing with their own centralized solution for payments, and for the rest, I mean, I just think it's really cool tech. I mean, as I said, I was skeptical about it, but where it is right now, and where it could be in 5 years from now or 10 years from now, and all of the theoretical things that are possible there, I'm really excited about what's gonna bring. Maybe it'll allow decentralized exchanges on it. I don't know. I think only time will tell. Maybe Ethereum could use it in some way. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of waiting until it's extremely rare to ever have a failed payment. We'll start with that. In some ways, Lightning is in 2010, 2011 era Bitcoin stages, and so, I mean, as far as I know, the static payment address for Lightning is not really well adopted yet. What is it
Yeah,
called?
that's one of the
LURL.
big things. That's one of the big things that was a compromise for Lightning. The fact that you don't
Mm-hmm.
really have an address, but rather you just emit an invoice and then the invoice
Mm-hmm.
gets paid. So that makes it so that you cannot send the amount you want to the person. They just have to request it. So that was a bummer.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe there are two implementations. There might be more, but I think there's two that are somewhat adopted that allow you to have I mean, they call it an address, but what it really is, it's a zero, uh, an invoice for like zero amount, and then where
Mm.
you're paying it, you define the amount. So it's like tricking the system into it behaving like it is an actual address. So yeah, that's definitely green territory right now. I don't even think there's one standard that all Lightning wallets can support it. So if you're trying to send the amount you want and they have the different, implementation, it'll not be compatible. So you just have to request a normal invoice. So yeah, it's definitely still a beta thing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's something that's gotten annoying to me about trying to use Bitcoin over the last, what is it, 5 years, I guess, right around like the SegWit time, is the compatibility issues have become just annoying, because before it was just this is how everyone can use it, and now it's like, well, do you support Segwit? Because if not, this Segwit address won't work, and then this other address, and then Bitcoin Cash had its own stuff. People were sending the wrong addresses, and then they had their own weird little address formats, and then BSV went back to like the original one, and then there's like, I mean, multi-sig was already annoying, but then, getting like Schnorr implemented too, and just adding more. And then it's like, okay, we got to do Lightning, and I don't know if I can pay you because I don't know if I have a channel with enough liquidity to route over there. I'm already figuring that stuff out, and then we get it all figured out, but then your protocol doesn't support the one in my wallet, and then it just like, ooh, like, I think
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. I mean, there's a lot of things to be standardized, and I think that, honestly, I think that if Bitcoin moved forward in a much more uniform way, that would be better. Like, no, like, completely get rid of legacy addresses. Like, only everything is just one. Schnorr is the only type, for example, and just like put it through there, and then Lightning is like a uniform protocol now. Like, everything has this and works like that, and like, but that's kind of like not the not the way Bitcoin's
Yeah.
technology advances. BTC, at least,
It,
it's very like
yeah.
bolt on. I put this thing on, I put that thing on.
Yeah. That's definitely one of the things that, uh, not having some way to fully
Mm-hmm.
implement something that applies to everybody
Mm-hmm.
has its drawbacks. And the address thing is definitely annoying because I mean, I use Bitcoin every day, Lightning on chain, and crypto in general every day. And I definitely experienced this annoying thing where I'm using a wallet that's still not adopting the Bech32 addresses, which saved me a lot in fees. And it'll just
Mm-hmm.
tell me, hey, we don't support this wallet. The address format incorrect. Address format incorrect. Like, what the fuck, dude? Why are you
Mm-hmm.
not using Bech32? Like, this is much more efficient. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
saving 90% of the fees with this address. And you want me to use a legacy one, which you can do. Like, the Batch32 address is just a different format for the same address in legacy. So I have this tool where I can just switch back, take a Batch32 address and it'll spit back the legacy one. And then the
Mm-hmm.
payment will still get through. I'll just pay a higher fee. But it's just annoying, I mean, with Lightning, it's the same. Like, I mean, for me, most of the time I'm paying with Lightning, I know the amount that I'm paying. I am just paying per I don't know, some
Yeah.
meat, some butter, some cheese, whatever. So it's not a problem. I don't really experience too much this thing where people just give me a QR and I have to type the amount myself. So
Mm-hmm.
I do not experience this in my normal life, but on the technical side, on a work side, I've dealt with it, and it's really annoying. So I hope Lightning can, eventually have one standard that everybody's compatible with. But on Bitcoin, you always have this thing where you need backwards compatibility and things like that. And so, yeah, it's kind of annoying. But it's interesting that at least the other thing doesn't happen. Like, it would be annoying if this new wallets migrated to the Veg32 addresses and then they deprecated the old legacy ones. And now I cannot send money back to the. That doesn't happen. So I can always send money to legacy addresses.
Mm-hmm.
I just cannot send money from legacy wallets to new wallets because they're not updating it. So it's really annoying. And I mean, I don't really know what the full answer is. It's just something that me as a tech savvy person, it's not really a problem for me, but I can see how it can be a problem for a lot of people. So
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like optimizing code so it runs faster. It's funny because developers understand that to a certain point, even if some of them are really bad at it. At least they understand if you optimize the code, the whole thing runs like more simply. But you gotta optimize the human code as well. You gotta optimize like every single like the statistical chance that people will just not use it goes up astronomically every extra thing they have to do, including where their eyes have to go. Like, I have to look to here, to there. Every second they have to think before, like every bit, and then they just might like throw the phone away and not use it at all. And it just like, it pains me when I'm like, oh, it just doesn't like just work. I gotta be like,
yeah,
all these
that's
things.
really annoying. Maybe one day there'll be this new standard that's compatible with everything, and there'll just be one QR unified for everything, and it'll just intelligently send via Lightning or on-chain, depending on how the fees are. I don't know. Maybe it's just daydreaming, but I think a feature like that could be cool. And I think it's funny that, as you said, a lot of Bitcoiners are like, I'm never spending my thing. I'm fully against that. Bitcoin is made, and crypto in general is made to be spent. Like, a lot of these people, I've been able to meet a lot of people this past year who do not have a lot of experience in Latin America, and it's funny to see how payments for them are not really a priority. And I'm like, dude, payments are like the number 1 or 2 priority in this thing. Like, you need to pay with this stuff. You haven't been censored. You haven't been blocked from things. You haven't been like crossing a border, with your money in your head and then be able to spend it on the other side. Like, you need to spend this thing. So, but I'm happy to see that this mentality. I do think it's changing thanks to Lightning. Like, a lot of people who I saw like 2-3 years ago saying like, you should never spend Bitcoin. We should make Bitcoin blocks smaller. 300 kilobytes per block. Now they're and it's
changing.
sad that it's more for political reasons, but at least they're changing their mind. They're saying, yeah, it's cool to spend Bitcoin, and I like that.
Yeah, it is very telling to see how quickly that kind of changed. I mean, that's like a 3-hour long conversation on maximalism, I'm sure. But I'll take it wherever you can get it. I don't know if you know Brian Harrington, but he's some like local some Bitcoin activist guy, and he's like a Lightning and Bitcoin maximalist kind of person. But he and I get along quite well because we have the same kind of goal of getting out of fiat and like using real stuff. So, well,
that's the main point. Moving away from the fiat system. Like, we might have disagreements about, which system, which technology, but we're all together in the same boat, dude. We're just trying to, move away from this thing. Now, I do think that there's, just before we move to another subject, I see an interesting parallel right now with the hyperinflation that's going on with the dollar. Back in Venezuela, I remember 10 years ago, 15 years ago to 10 years ago, like from 2007 to 2012, the Bolivar was already on its way to collapse. The full financial system hadn't fully collapsed yet. And so there were a lot of opportunities for you to take loans in Bolivars, and you just convert everything to dollar, and then you just pay the the rates, the monthly
Mm-hmm.
payments on your bolivares, and every single month you'll be paying less money. And so, uh,
Yeah.
I mean, you could buy some house or something like that, and at the end of the day, your monthly payments due to inflation were so low. Like the interest could be 50% or 100%. You didn't even care. Like the
Mm-hmm.
inflation was so high that you was just have everything in dollars, and then you just pay your monthly fees, and at the end it's just like free money or something like that. You're taking advantage of a collapsing system. And I've
Yeah.
seen a little bit of that now with Bitcoin and dollar. So I've had conversations recently where it's like, hey, right now it feels like 2007. Like take a loan in dollars, and then you just pay the monthly things. Like, why would I spend the full Bitcoin for the house where I can just have a fiat loan and then just pay with Bitcoin? And so obviously we're trying to move away from fiat, but I do remember this being a very good thing to do personally in Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
So why wouldn't you do that with the current fiat system just to have
How did
a
that
better
end,
use of
by
your
the
money?
way? Like, were all these loans honored? So let's just say you take out a mortgage on a house, and it's in fiat, and the mortgage rate, like, let's just say today, right? The mortgage rate's like, it's gone up a little bit, but like, let's say last year you get like a 4.5% interest rate or something, or 5% or something, and then reported inflation is over 8%, and I'm sure real inflation's higher than that. And
Yeah,
so
it's
over a
like
long
15 or 20 for sure.
yeah, over a long period of time, you're getting the thing practically for free. It's like not that bad. But
Yeah.
what happens when in that's not just like you don't just exploit the system. There's someone on the other end of the system. There's the bank in this case, and the bank is losing money. Now, the thing is, what happened in Venezuela and people are doing that? Did the banks just end up collapsing, or did they end up like not honoring the agreements and demanding payment up front, or like changing the rates? How did that end up happening when people were doing things like this and taking advantage of the system?
This is a great question because you could do this because you had some certainty.
Mm-hmm.
You were certain that they could not change the rates or they were not going
Yeah.
to change them. Like, I don't really know why they
Mm-hmm.
couldn't. I just know that they couldn't. And maybe it
The
was an
law, I
overhead
guess.
in terms of, I don't know if it was a law. I think this is a great question. I
Mm-hmm.
will research this because the business, and let's be honest, I mean, we have this thing in Spanish. I don't know how to say this in English, but it's called la papa caliente. It's like the hot
Mm-hmm.
potato,
Yeah.
where it's like you're just trying to throw it to somebody else. And so
Mm-hmm.
eventually someone's going to get burned, but it's not going to be you.
Mm-hmm.
But we're already playing that game. Like some people are gonna get the short end of the stick. Like if you're buying Bitcoin, if you're buying crypto, someone is selling it to you. Someone is getting the
Mm-hmm.
short end of the stick. So it's not like we're trading one way or another. You're trying to maximize, the opportunity for you to be efficient with your money, and a lot of people on the other side, they're just trying to cash in some profits to buy some stupid thing, and they're gonna get the short on the stick.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely, when you were doing this in Venezuela, these banks were just printing money like crazy, and those people who still had their savings in bolivars, they were getting the short end of the stick.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question there now is, should I not do this because somebody else is getting the short end of the stick, or should they also be doing this until the government is the only one that gets fucked with their fake money that they're printing? I don't really know what their answer lies.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we want to get fully, like if you want to get into this high ground where you say, I don't want anybody to get the short end of the stick due to my actions, then you shouldn't be buying Bitcoin, because if you're buying Bitcoin, you're doing that. You're giving
Yeah.
fiat to somebody, in exchange for a better money. So am I scamming somebody by buying Bitcoin from them? I don't feel like that's the case. So
Yeah, not really. Also, people, if it's a voluntary, like if I was, for example, selling someone an asset, like if I was selling someone Dogecoin at like the top of the bubble, um, I would be very careful to, on a personal ethical level, to just make sure that they're not, they're not hoping this is going to keep going up by a lot, or that they know that they're gambling if they do. For example, there's just always that ethical thing. Anyone who I try to sell, like anyone I would try to, I don't buy crypto, right? But if I did buy crypto, anyone I try to buy it from, I would, I would be like, all right, well, you want dollars, I guess. Good luck with that. Like, I would, understand. I wouldn't be like, I would try to like sell them on like, oh, you really want my dollars, like. And there's a possibility that they could want the dollars because they could do something with it that they can't do with the crypto, and maybe they use it to buy more crypto in a in a better rate than they're already selling it to me for or something. Who knows? But that is a good point about like the banks. The banks will always be solvent because when they're insolvent, they get a bailout. And the bailout comes from printed fake money.
Like at the end of the day, the banks are not the ones that are getting fucked. It's other people who are getting fucked at the end due to inflation, and that's why we, as crypto people and Bitcoin people, we're always telling people, "Hey, move away from fiat. Move away from fiat. Get rid of fiat. Don't save money in fiat." But I cannot look at a Bitcoiner who's getting a mortgage on their house in dollars, like. At an individual level, I cannot tell them, dude, don't do this. Like they're telling me, why would I sell, I don't know, 10 Bitcoin right now, where I could just get a loan and end up spending, I don't know, 3 Bitcoin on a 5-year, 7-year thing. Like, how do you tell somebody not to do that when they have the opportunity to do it? I don't know.
Yeah, I am skeptical. I am always like wary to tell people to get into debt or to encourage that at all. Much less today than other days. Like when inflation was like reportedly like 3-4% or something like that. Then it's like, okay, but what happens if you get like an 8% interest rate and then you buy a bunch of crypto and it just doesn't go up in time? Like, for example, what happens if Bitcoin hit, let's just say, last bull market, it hits $20,000, and people put laser eyes, and then they go like, I'm going to take out a big loan and buy all the Bitcoin, and then they just get completely screwed over the next few years, and they don't have the money. They don't have the money just last it out until it goes back higher than it was before. They get screwed. And I was gonna say hit 69,000 and Michael Saylor scammed them and stuff or whatever. But the thing about right now is grossly irresponsible behavior like that is not as irresponsible as it used to be. Like the fiat system is like I'm staking some stable coins for like 20% APY or whatever. And I'm just looking at that like, am I breaking even? I think I'm making money. Am I making money just because of how far
you might not be breaking even, And that's the funny thing. Like I would never encourage somebody to go into debt like that. That is something that's incredibly risky. But if someone has made their own mind and they are taking the risk and they're knowledgeable about what they're doing and the risk they're taking, I cannot ethically tell them, hey, you should move away from the fiat system. You shouldn't do this. And the fact that in Venezuela, people used to do this back in the day, the more they knew that the Bolivar was fucked, the more confident they were that this was going to pay off. Because in the beginning, people didn't want to do it. People had the same mentality. Inflation, was still insane, but in Latin America for decades, people have been used to living with 30%, 20%, 40% inflation yearly. And for us, that was like normal. Like for me, when I was a kid, moving from 3rd grade to 4th grade, I would expect prices to double from one year to the other. And that was still normal life, which is insane to think. But then when things got out of control, you already knew this thing is going downhill bad. Like I'm 100% certain that this loan is free money. Like I'm gonna end up paying way less than even this high interest that they're asking me for. And the more I see what the Federal Reserve is doing, the money printing and the inflation, I see the same path. Obviously they're not at the same point in the path, but I don't think the fiat system can save itself. I really see the whole thing collapsing. I can see it like I can see the path so clearly. I'm so convinced that it's going to fully collapse eventually.
Hmm.
That it's just like, dude, just do what you can and then watch it collapse. And hopefully most people can move away from it and save in Bitcoin and other cryptos before it happens, because I already saw that happening once in Venezuela. It was very sad that a lot of people, like, can you imagine? Let's say
Hmm.
you were a business person in Venezuela, you were really nationalistic, you only had bolivares in your bank account, whatever. I mean, there's nobody who had a lot of money did, but let's just imagine that. If you had
Yeah.
the equivalent of $1 million 10 years ago in a bolivar's bank account, you would have less than 1 cent today.
Hmm.
But that's really the government stepping in and taking your full $1 million from your bank account. They just stole the whole thing.
Yeah, all of it.
So all of it, they just stole it. So yeah, it's sad, and I don't think the dollar or any other fiat system can go any different way. They're just going to keep printing it, and they're going to get fucked.
Yeah. Now, one thing I do wonder is what happens if um, they what happens if they print what happens if they do, like, do you remember when, I don't know how much you remember the peso crisis in Mexico, where then they like reissued the new pesos and they cut off like 3 zeros and stuff, like they did all the like, what if they do that, but then that applies to the loan? Like, let's just say you owe $100,000 and then that turns out to be nothing, but then they chop off three of the zeros, so 10,000 of the new dollars is 100,000 the old one, but now you owe 100,000 of the new one. Like, I wonder if they could do
Uh,
something like that.
that's a great point, because in Venezuela they've done that several times.
Oh,
Like the,
all
the
my bad
original,
ideas actually
yeah,
happened. It's terrible.
yeah, yeah. Like no, but not like the loans,
Yeah.
the monetary conversion. And when they do
Yes.
that, it would be blast. It would be bullshit for them to keep your. I mean, the way this works is that you have the old uh,
Mm-hmm.
coin, whatever, the old currency, and then you introduce a new currency. But even the ticker, it's a little different. It used
Mm-hmm.
to be VES, and now then VEF, and then it's like VES again. Like, people understand that this is not the same
Yeah.
thing. So if I owe you 1,000 bolivares, I should now owe you one bolivar. I'm
Mm-hmm.
conscious of that. You cannot charge me 1,000 of the new thing. That would be the hugest. Like, if that were to happen, I think people would actually go to the streets and start a civil war or something like that, because that would be increasing your debt by like 1,000 or like 10,000%. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But I mean, that is useful for them, just to for the government, I mean, for them to, well, there's two things. One that is true, which is makes day-to-day commerce easier. Like in Venezuela, they've done that like 4 times already. Like the original Bolivar,
Mm-hmm.
right now, one of the current Bolivars, I think, is like 2 trillion of the original ones. So if something
Yeah.
right now costs, I don't know, 1,000 bolivars, it's really a quadrillion
Mm-hmm.
bolivars from the original ones. So it's obviously easier to say, hey, you owe me 1,000 things than a quadrillion, but also that allows them to say that inflation is not so high. $1 is only 4.5 and not 4,500 or 45,000. But at the end of the day, I think people know what it is. So if they were to do what you said, like, they're really
Redenominate
increasing
the
your
debts.
debt. Yeah, I see. I don't see that happen. I think people will actually go to the streets and kill for that if they were to do that. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it could be crazy. So, and also, I think you point out a good thing that about the later years of the dying system. We're not. It's not dead yet. It's just getting there, and so it's just like, I also feel like this is, I mean, it's more of like, I guess it's more of like a political comment than a crypto comment, but still, I also feel like the people in charge of most governments, but especially the US government right now, that over the last few years, the switch has changed from like regular corruption to now they're starting to feel like, let's like rob the ship before it sinks kind of thing. Like the amount of like dumb things that they're doing that are no way in the best interest of the people. But it's like before they could like pretend. Now it's just like they're robbing it on their way out. Like they know they're on their way out. They're just robbing it, exploiting people on the.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if they're doing that, we might as well exploit the banks. But like, if you know what I mean. But that's a good thing about like
Yeah.
DeFi and stuff too, is you get to, let's just say, like, so for example, Thorchain is coming out with relatively soon, I guess, I don't know when, ThorFi, a loan system where you could get a collateralized 0% interest loan. And basically, you put, instead of, let's just say you have one Bitcoin and, whatever that's worth at 40 grand, you want to sell it to buy a decent car, like a nice car. I mean, I don't know how nice people consider a 40 grand car, but it's like, that's a lot nicer than what I spend.
It's a pretty decent car. I think
That's a lot more than I spend. Yeah. So, it's like kind of like a third of that. But anyway, let's just say you want like a good car, right? And then instead of selling your Bitcoin or spending your Bitcoin on the car, you just take out a collateralized loan on there, buy the car, and then you still have your Bitcoin. You just have to pay it back. Or I believe some early permutations of the system or some early thing. I have to pin them down on this because I remember hearing Chad say something about the loan would pay itself off because by having access to your capital, they can earn money on it by providing liquidity and stuff like that. And then they take a piece of that, right, for the interest or for the loan, I guess, but then it just pays itself off automatically by just staying in their possession until eventually you just get Bitcoin back. And it's like,
you could get negative interest rates that way, even. Like if they had
yeah.
a good business model where they can take advantage of that, they
Yeah.
could literally give you a negative interest and you just,
Yeah. But it's also just the fact that like you can get the fiat loan and then you don't have to part with your Bitcoin because it stays there and it's going up in value, whereas the fiat goes down in value. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But on that subject about like, let's hit the regulation topic. So Bitstamp asks users to update the source of their crypto, citing regulatory compliance. Bitstamp now requires users to provide information like their nationality, their place of birth, and tax residency, which, I guess that's relatively standard KYC stuff, in addition to documents proving the origin of the crypto they have. Like, where the hell did you get this? It's like none of your business. And their annual income. So that's pretty insane. First off, like,
it's insane.
You don't have to do that when opening up fiat bank accounts, do you? Really, you just have to, provide your ID and your tax number and all that other stuff, and then
That's it.
From my understanding, again, not something I'm familiar with in the modern age, but it's you don't have to I don't think you have to prove where you got your money to start a bank account unless it's like a significant portion of money to where it's like, I think it's like huge amounts, but now for like everything with crypto, it's like, wow. And this kind of wraps up into the same thing of the Coin Center thing, where the SEC is the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission is basically trying to update what they would consider as an exchange that would include a means of communication and not just an exchange. Basically, they would change the meaning of an exchange from a system that brings together orders, meaning buyers and sellers, like buy and sell orders, to the system that brings together buyers and sellers. And the definition could then start to encompass developers of open source software, because you build a decentralized exchange or something, and then now you have to register. So there's a big, I wouldn't say it's a crackdown yet, because they're kind of going slow on this, and they're not really like shutting a billion things down yet, but it's heading in that direction. So it's funny because as all this is happening, as the crypto bank, I think it's being a crypto bank, as I don't call it Coinbase and stuff like an exchange. I just call them a crypto bank because
It's a crypto bank. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So the business of being a crypto bank, I think, is becoming like worse and worse. Like I would divest if I was an investor in companies. I would divest from crypto banks right now because they're getting squeezed really hard at the same time as the DeFi space is exploding.
I really think they're fucked. Like all this, you know, crypto banks in the U.S. in the West, I really
Mm-hmm.
think they're gonna get fucked. Like the regulation is gonna come in and it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna swoop them away because, and these regulators, it's funny. Like one of the ways I think this whole thing is gonna collapse in the West is because we're talking about a technology that's outside the realm of what you guys are used to. You're trying
Mm-hmm.
to catch up with regulation that doesn't really apply to this. It's like, for example, one of the things that is really funny, and all these companies have to comply because if not, they're going to get
Mm-hmm.
shut down. And so they end up doing all this bullshit that's not even useful, not even for like if you want to,
Mm-hmm.
say that they're all the best intentions and security and whatever. Like, for example, blacklisting addresses. This whole thing about, this address is blacklisted because it was used by terrorists or whatever. Like the terrorists can just hit their wallet and create a new address in a second.
Mm-hmm.
They can create a million new addresses in a second, and now they're all not blacklisted, but they're regular for compliance and to say that they're compliant. All these people are implementing this, you know, KYT things to supposedly, have your things safe and bring you alarms. When in reality, the people who know what they're doing, and if they want to do bad stuff, they'll just create new addresses and be done with it. And so the same thing happens when you have a smart contract in Ethereum that nobody owns and it is providing a financial service and it's holding
Mm-hmm.
money itself and there's nobody controlling it. How do you regulate that? So
Yeah.
what are you going to do? Are you going to go after the programmer who coded it, who's not even responsible or liable? He doesn't own the money. He cannot take the money out of the contract. Is he now
Yeah.
liable? Or are you going to apply all this crap to him? It's just
And
bullshit.
and what makes it money? Like how it just look the only thing that makes it money in the government side, I guess, is now people are starting to like derive value from it. But like it's kind of hilarious these days. I saw some meme. There's been a million permutation of like some crypto accountant like helping them kind of do it, and then they're like, all right, so what I did is I got all this like I had like 3,000% APY from staking my cum rocket, and then I flipped that into like an NFT of a chimpanzee that then this and then like all this like stuff that doesn't make any sense to anyone, and it's like how much
Yeah.
do I owe on capital gains? It's like you can't do that. It's
Oh
like
man.
you know.
The whole capital gains thing is also bullshit. And I mean, I don't live in the
Mm-hmm,
US or whatever, but my understanding, and I would like if you would confirm this, is that if
mm-hmm,
you actually spend Bitcoin and you buy something with it, you have to pay capital gains for it when you're just
mm-hmm.
spending it rather than selling it. Is that the case?
Yes, supposedly.
Supposedly. Like,
Yes.
come on. So that's so much bullshit. Like, who's going to actually have their accountant or the tax attorney, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
go through that and count the capital gains on every single purchase you've made on all your different crypto and all the different merchants? Like, these people are just it's a new era, it's a new technology, they don't know what they're doing, and I don't want to get into a political conversation, but a lot of these people, what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing is just doing something just to tell to their constituents that they're doing something. Like with COVID, we don't know
Yeah.
what we're doing, but we're doing something. We're doing
And
something. So
and not in their official constituents, their unofficial constituents, like the
yeah,
banksters and stuff.
correct.
Just to say like, oh, we're cracking down, we're making them comply, all this kind of stuff. But that's why I really hope they get a de minimis exemption put in, where you wouldn't have to do capital gains on, let's say, transactions of like under $1,000. So like every time you buy, you can buy all the coffee you want or whatever. It just that when you start buying a new car or something like that, then you'd have to do it. Even then, it just like the thing is there shouldn't be like capital gains is kind of like it's fiat capital losses really is what it is. It's just like what if you're and that's one thing like I've seen the crypto markets go like up and stuff like that. What I like to do is I like to see like a 10-year crypto chart, like say a Bitcoin price chart. I like to see that 10-year chart adjusted for inflation, where it's inflation adjusted terms. So it looks astronomical now, but like how much purchasing power has Bitcoin really gained? It has, but is it
That's
been as
really interesting.
astronomical? Like I would
It's
love
like
to.
the S&P. It's
Yeah.
like the S&P that's going up and up and up. But when you adjust it for like what many consider real inflation, because at the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, the current thing they use in the US is also bullshit. It's not 7%. Like
Yeah.
if you adjust it for like real inflation, the S&P is actually like flat or like going up
Mm-hmm.
1% a year or something like that. It's pretty flat. So I mean, it's a good value preserving vehicle, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
actually appreciating in terms of purchasing power. Like you're not gaining too much purchasing power. You're just protecting your existing purchasing power to some degree. And I think Bitcoin and crypto is eventually heading that route. I don't see, an infinite spiral of growth forever. Eventually, it's just going to hold its value. It's going to go up in terms of fiat, but in reality, fiat, and it's the same that what happened in Venezuela. Everybody knew that the dollar was not going up. It's the bolivar
Mm-hmm.
that was going down. Like,
Yeah.
but it took some time. Like, it was the truth from the beginning, but a lot of people were, saying, "Oh my God, the dollar's going up. The dollar goes up so much." No, no, the dollar's not going up. It's the bolivar that's crashing down to the
Yeah.
ground.
It's like you're
So
both
the same thing's
skydiving.
happening.
It's like you're
Exactly.
skydiving and someone's going, "Oh wow, he's going so high." It's like, no, he's gonna fall
No,
too. You know?
dude. Oh
Yeah.
my God, that's funny. That was a good one.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. Let's hit on this Robinhood thing. So, um, basically, the Robinhood CEO, Vladimir Tenev, took to Twitter on Thursday afternoon to explain how Dogecoin could become the future currency of the internet. In a thread of 12 posts with nearly 200,000 followers, Tenev outlined what steps need to be taken to transform the meme coin into usable asset for everyday payments and transactions on the internet. What's your hot take on this thing, real quick?
I think it's really funny. Actually, I mean, this made me chuckle because I really like Dogecoin as a meme.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny to see that Dogecoin has uh, a lot of properties that make it close to like fiat crypto, like
Mm-hmm.
infinite inflation and things like that. Uh, and so I think this guy, I mean, I don't know this guy really, I don't know his background, but if he's the CEO of Robinhood, I don't think he's a crypto guy really. He's just a
Mm-hmm.
traditional tech finance guy. And so he's just taking the current knowledge of the fiat system and saying, hey, this Dogecoin thing kind of could work like that. I had a discussion a couple of weeks back with a friend, and he was arguing against crypto. He was like, money needs to be inflationary. Some inflation is good, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like some people
Mm-hmm.
still think like that, and so some people think that Dogecoin is better because it has higher inflation, because inflation encourages spending, and spending is good for the economy, and all this bullshit. So I mean, I just think that this guy was doing a thought experiment,
Mm-hmm.
extrapolating the fiat knowledge and seeing how Dogecoin could, mold into it. And obviously, it's going to get views and stuff because it's Doge. I don't think there's anything more to it, I just think it's funny. I mean, I think it's fun thought experiment to see how something could work, but I don't see anything more on this. What's your take on this?
Well, so it's kind of funny. It kind of makes you see. Do you know what? Remember people were saying, talking about like the mass formation psychosis kind of thing, which that's a little hyperbolic to talk about this situation, but Dogecoin, like everyone in crypto kind of knew that Doge sort of worked and was fine, but was like just a copy of Bitcoin that like was fun because of the dog, and then it was on its way out. Like no one was going to use it. Elon starts messing around like because he's just trolling all the time, right? And then
Yeah,
the price goes crazy, and then as soon as the price goes crazy, a bunch of companies like start adding it, like, oh, we're gonna add Dogecoin, we're gonna add
yeah,
like, and it's just clearly a naked attempt at like capitalizing on but free publicity. It's like literally all it is. But then they start believing their own crap, kind of, right? They're just
yeah.
like, oh, like oh, but it's so good, and then Elon Musk gets into because he just likes to argue with people and like, shit posts and stuff. He starts breaking down why Dogecoin is a good form of payment by breaking down like real things. Like he's not lying. He's saying real things,
Yeah.
but he's choosing Dogecoin as his platform. And that's just like, okay, fine. You're trolling the maxis and stuff. That's fine. But then you have people like this motherfucker here, who he should know better. Like he's not Elon, but now he's like, no, actually, it would be a good form of payment. Like he's starting to buy his own bullshit, while like Robinhood accepts Dogecoin. Like Robinhood was where the Game Stonks whole episode happened, and then now Dogecoin and all that is like the next wave of that. It's a crypto version of that. And now he's like, well, but actually could be a really good, like, as in, can I pump the thing more? Can I get more customers on? It's so shameless, but I think to a certain extent, a lot of people, because they heard, like, it's like follow the leader kind of thing, because they heard Elon talk about it, now they're starting to actually be like, you know what? This could have legs. This could be like a good payments coin and stuff. Like, I'm just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's absolutely. And I don't know if this guy, as I said, I don't know his background. So it might be true that he's just, getting free publicity so that his company makes more money. But that's not the vibe that I got from his tweets. I think he was just doing an innocent thought experiment, taking, a centralized meme shitcoin and just, taking the characteristics that are theoretically good for payments and doing the thing. So, but in any case, I do agree that this all comes from Elon just trolling people and then people taking it seriously, in one way or another. Like he's either that guy or he's just shamelessly trying to get customers and people to give him more money by using Doge on his platform. But that's not the vibe that I got from the tweets, but it's just funny to see.
Yeah, that's one thing I think is interesting about the way Elon seems to act is he likes to push at the barriers of his reality. Like the world is this way, and he says, I wonder if I can make it a little bigger. I wonder what stuff that wasn't possible can I make possible. And so when you see this whole Doge thing, like he's clearly like he did something that worked in a way. Like he didn't intend. I don't think he intended to pump Doge in the beginning. He just was having fun, and then it pumped. And now he's just thinking like, how much more can I just push this without putting like real capital and things like that into it? With just by messing around, how far can I push like the space to go in a completely illogical direction just because of this? And so he's kind of doing that, and it's kind of working. And I think that companies like Robinhood are going to profit off of it. And I think that companies like BitPay are probably not, like the payment processors. They're probably but they don't like spend that much because it's not that difficult to integrate basically a Bitcoin clone type thing like Doge. And it's fine.
And I don't even know, like, I would like to know more about like the whole mining of Doge and like the nodes and all that, like who's controlling all that? Maybe this. Do you know any information about that? Like, obviously we know it's centralized, but who's controlling it? Like who's behind this thing? Like, do you know anything about that?
No, not specifically. I think the Dogecoin probably just has like a few community people that just like it, that were doing it. And of course, all the exchanges have to run infrastructure. And isn't Litecoin merge mined with Dogecoin or something? I think it is or was. So because of that, then it kind of like plugs together. I don't know.
Like if they wanted to increase the blocks to what this guy's saying here, like who makes that call? Like who forks it? Like who gets together and says, let's fork Dogecoin to have more throughput? Like I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, it's definitely not the Dogecoin founder. He's not involved anymore.
Yeah, he's not involved anymore. Yeah,
he's become very much more popular on Twitter now. So that's very interesting.
And there's one thing when I heard Elon talk about this, I thought it was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's obviously trolling, but he also spits some truths out there that make you think. And he was like, okay, let's say we go to Mars. What's going to be the money in Mars? Like, it takes light. I think it's like 8 minutes. No, 8 minutes is to the sun. It's like to Mars is like 2 minutes or something like that. I don't really remember the exact number
Mm-hmm.
for light to get there. And so, if you want to use Bitcoin or something else, how does that work? Will they develop
Mm-hmm.
their own cryptocurrency there that only works there, and then we just settle with them? Or are they going to use Lightning on their own thing, and then we settle
Mm-hmm.
on chain, waiting for the 2 or 3 minutes for light to get here, and then the block? Or how do you even sync a blockchain when you have that
Mm-hmm.
time delay? Like
Yeah.
how do you deal with double spending when you know that the coins that you receive were spent, but they are 2 minutes, so they might have spent them. Like if I send you a transaction to Mars, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and it takes 2 minutes for it to get there, but then when it's a minute, I spend it here on Earth, and then you received it over there 2 minutes later. How do you do that? Hey,
Just
how's money
increase
going
the
to look?
confirmations, duh. No, I don't know. It'll be
Yeah,
fun.
increase them.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
have a feeling
So
that people will be not doing a lot of interstellar commerce. Like, I
yeah,
think that like they'll have a node or like an office or someone on Earth to handle all their stuff like that. But that's probably how it'll turn out. It could be like a siloed ecosystem. Um, how familiar are you with the whole Terra Luna ecosystem?
I'm not too familiar with it. I talked a little bit with an ex Dash developer that's doing some stuff over there. He's very excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not extremely familiar with it, but I am very aware of the UST thing and how
Mm-hmm.
they're going hard on it. And I think it's very very interesting to see
Yeah.
they push the stablecoin thing, because I think stablecoins are definitely, at least right now, they're good business for a lot of companies, and they do provide utility.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Well, let me just hit this headline of here we go. The Terra blockchain developer Terraform Labs has gifted the Luna Foundation Guard 10 million Luna, worth around 820 million. LFG is a nonprofit organization attached to Terra, tasked with collateralizing the network's algorithmic stablecoin, Terra USD, to keep it pegged to the US dollar. And so it's basically from like one Terra institution to another to basically make the peg like more sturdy. The thing that really, so I didn't pay much attention to Terra till recently, because just like, all right, whatever, I don't care. And then it's like, well, maybe solving a stablecoin by making a great algorithmic method of keeping the peg by burning Luna to mint UST, and then the other way around, and so it kind of like ends up balancing out. I'm like, oh, that's cool. But then they started buying Bitcoin. I'm like, what? What's this? And then now they're like, they have like a bunch of stuff collateralizing the token. So now it's like a bank almost. You know,
yeah,
it's that got weird because I thought it was like, oh, it's like a new technological innovation you can trust, and now it's just like, well, yeah, but we are also like, there's also some like really rich fuck behind it with a bunch of money who's just guaranteeing the value. Like, what? Like, isn't that kind of the opposite of what it was? But that's just like a hot take on that kind of thing.
yeah, and I didn't know anything about what you said at the beginning, because it sounded a lot like
Mm-hmm.
DAI, which
Mm-hmm.
is very interesting because you're trying to maintain the peg by
Mm-hmm.
using the free market forces, and having your stakeholders be incentivized to buy and sell automatically to maintain the peg, and they get rewarded for that. So that makes a lot of sense. And was Luna doing anything similar to that? Like, were they actually burning coins and stuff? And now they
Yes.
moved away from that into just having a USDT clone where they just have reserves and back in the thing. Like, did they move away from it, or they have like a hybrid model? How does that work?
I'm not exactly sure. I think that technologically, it's a pure burn and mint model. It's a pure like automatic burn and mint model. But if I were to guess, I think they have like extra safeguards to it, to where like if the peg starts to crash, like then they can throw a bunch of external money to like manipulate the system
Okay.
back into working out, which it seems okay. It doesn't inspire much confidence in the technology because it's like,
Yeah.
or
Definitely.
maybe it's all for show just to like keep the boomers like satisfied with it until the technology can prove itself. But I don't know. It's kind of strange. There's a lot of like manipulation kind of stuff going on with that, and I see the value in stablecoins. And who is it? Eric Voorhees even said he's most excited about this year. The thing in crypto he's most excited about are algorithmic decentralized stablecoins. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, there's a lot of really cool innovation coming out of that sector. But how is you most excited about something that's pegged to the crashing fiat currency that crypto is created in order to get out of? Like, that's not something I can be the most excited about. I don't want anything pegged to fiat if I can help it.
Yeah. I mean, I do see the utility in it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
uh, obviously, there's the foundational thing that we're all trying to get away from,
Mm-hmm.
but you cannot just move black to white immediately, you know. And I fully understand. And this happened in Venezuela, and I see it everywhere. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people cannot afford to deal with short term volatility. It's just the
Mm-hmm.
reality. Like some of us uh, have been able to, live in a way where I don't care if the whole crypto market goes down 50%,
Mm-hmm.
70%. I don't give a fuck. Like,
It's
I don't
temporary.
see exactly. I don't feel my savings going down 70% because I'm not touching them mostly.
Mm-hmm.
So, but for a lot of people who work on a day to day basis, like imagine you're just a small merchant, you sell and buy pupusas, and then you just got some money to buy the materials, and then next day you wake up, it's 20% down. You cannot buy the same amount. Like that's a real pain. And so
Mm-hmm.
uh, I think a person that I spoke to a lot about this was Masternode Deep Blue. I haven't spoken to him in like a couple of years. I don't know where
Me
he
either.
is, but he uh, was a proponent of stablecoin in Dash. But he was
Mm-hmm.
saying that it shouldn't be a dollar stablecoin, but a stablecoin based on like a basket
Mm-hmm.
uh, of generalized necessity items, like milk and meat
Yeah.
and rice and things like that. And I thought it was very interesting. It never caught any, real hype on the forums or whatever. Although I think one of the things that Dash could have done better was do some sort of stable coin, just because of the fact that it's short term
Mm-hmm.
utility. And
Yeah.
when I saw the DAI model, I said,
Mm-hmm.
hey, Dash has a structure that could replicate that
Mm-hmm.
because the master nodes are sort of like the maker holders, and then you could issue a stable coin, and then they could automatically buy and sell just to keep the peg, and that would
Mm-hmm.
provide the short term utility for it to be used more massively. So I think the blue was one of the ones that was highly proponent of it, but he didn't want a USD thing. He was saying a
Mm-hmm.
basket of things. And I wonder, how would that work? Like who decides what the basket includes? Or let's say if we were to decide what the basket should include, then it doesn't really matter. If some of those items go up in price in dollars, then the stable coin goes up dollar terms. You don't care. The purchasing power is still somewhat the same.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was very interesting. Now, in terms of Luna, as I said, I see a lot of hype right now on it. I do think stablecoins have a lot of utility. I think they focusing on that is definitely paying off. I think a lot
Mm-hmm.
of projects could have moved into some stablecoin territory and, uh, you know, potentially do better because of it. And even
Yeah.
though all of us don't like fiat, there's definitely short-term utility things that crypto in its bare form is currently not solving. So you have to provide solutions in some way. And so,
Well, that's the thing is stablecoins are valuable, I guess, otherwise they wouldn't exist. However, I'm not going to be very interested in them until they find a non-fiat stablecoin of some sort. And like pegging a basket of goods is always very, very difficult because you need price oracles for all that. Now, what I would think would be
correct.
nice would be like, let's just say, what if you took the value? The problem is fiat is just crashing. So, but like, what if you
Yeah.
took, let's just say, the value of Bitcoin and gold and silver and like a couple of other things that are like the prices like well known, is easy to is well traded, and then just average those prices out. And so it just whatever the average of those is kind of where it goes, and that could be good. It could be
Yeah.
I mean ultimately stable coins are not like the base currency of a country is supposed to be the stable coin, right? And so it's kind of a crypto term also for in my view permanence of like the idea of a stable coin, or that it's called a stable coin, right? Even is kind of representative of crypto's failure, or at least not success yet. Because if it succeeds, it should be stable and going up. You shouldn't have to worry about that kind of stuff if it's there yet. If it's not there yet, then we have a problem in the meantime. And so the fiat stablecoin idea, I think, is going to be going away pretty soon. But it's just now that you can do that, people are going to want like these synthetic assets that are based on different pricing mechanisms, so that you don't just have to have your value in this one asset. You can have your value in other assets. And so that I think is going to be like, for example, a crypto stablecoin. Like imagine it's a crypto only world, and Bitcoin's like the most popular like store of value kind of thing. But then you got Litecoin, you got a bunch of other weird ones. And like, what if like the top you like just mint a synthetic that is tied to the average value of like your top 10 favorite assets or whatever. And so then whatever anything happens, it just, there you go. That's what it's worth. And so that's kind of stuff I think is going to be used a lot in the future.
Yeah. And the interesting thing there would be how do you, who decides
Mm-hmm.
the weights of each asset? Like when you're averaging, like, are you taking every asset equally, or are you taking
Mm-hmm.
each individual market cap and weighting them that way? Like, who decides that? And so there's a lot of
Yeah.
challenges there. I think ultimately, like looking far into the future, I do see a world where fiat doesn't exist, and and even with deflationary currencies like cryptocurrency with uh,
Mm-hmm.
fixed number of units being issued and the decaying number of units being issued per block.
Mm-hmm.
I do see it making sense, and I've read a lot about this, which is, and it ties back to the conversation that I had with a friend earlier that I mentioned. He was like, inflation is good because it incentivizes commerce and whatever. But if you think about it, the fact that you are relying on a thing that's somewhat stable short term, but is guaranteed to go down,
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing is that you're incentivizing people to not save.
Mm-hmm.
And since you're incentivizing people to not save, they're going to buy low quality products because it's better to
Yeah.
buy a low quality thing than to save. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's got everything backwards. Whereas if it was the other way around, like let's say Bitcoin, gets to a point where it's somewhat stable and market cap is really high, there's not crazy swings anymore. But instead of the fiat system, which is guaranteed going down, this is guaranteed going up, just in a somewhat more manageable, slope
Yeah.
or trajectory. Now you are incentivized to save, and you would only spend on something that you really needed, or something that's really good quality that you know it's going to pay off what you spend it on. And so, yeah, it would. for that world to come about, it would imply a huge collapse of the current entire financial system in the world and a lot of people going out of business. But eventually, I think it will be a better world in which people
The
are
crap
actually building
merchants.
things. Exactly, the crap merchants and all the bad quality
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Like, be in that world, people will be incentivized to buy things that are actually valuable, to spend their money on things that they really need. And I think it's very interesting to think about that.
Yeah, that's the thing that people don't. That's why I think like economic incentives are such a valuable thing that people don't understand. Is when you have a short time window that you're incentivized to spend all your money in, for example, you're not prioritizing quality. Which, when you're prioritizing quality, you're prioritizing the efficient allocation of capital, meaning
Correct.
the the best the best stuff, like getting more out of your work. And so if people were not disincentivized from saving, then they would, money would flow into better things that produce more things over time, and everything kind of goes up. It's kind of funny, like you think about businesses, right? Businesses that have an incentive for tax reasons to have no profit on the books because they don't want to pay taxes on any of that stuff, so they just put it back into the company some way, like the Amazon strategy or whatever. And
Yeah.
I'm sure, like, that's great to a certain extent, but like, rather than doing that, if they had the choice, maybe they're wasting money doing that. Maybe they would find more efficient ways of growing the company otherwise if they just didn't have to do it. They just could save a pot of money that then it's like, okay, now we have the resources to grow it. We get to pick and choose when the best season is. Like, for example, if a business didn't have to pay all those taxes, it didn't have to just wasn't incentivized to just get rid of profits, basically, then if there's something like, say, COVID that happens, uh, like they could have savings to just sustain the business during that, and then not hire a bunch of staff, open a bunch of locations, all this stuff, and then it goes crashing down like in the meantime. So yeah, I think it's kind of funny how like people see people are afraid of a collapse, but like they're not looking forward to what's on the other side of that.
Correct.
You know?
The collapse it's going to happen, and I know there's going to be pain. There's going to be people who lose what, but like
Mm-hmm.
people have the tools today to even if you're at the bottom, you can start to protect yourself in many
Mm-hmm.
ways. But the system itself, like the problem right now is that you have to step out of the system. You have to recognize
Mm-hmm.
that the system is fucked and then take the necessary decisions to protect yourself. Now,
Yeah.
on the other side, after the collapse, on an honest system, you don't even need uh, special education for you to learn all these things. Just the natural rules of the system guide better decisions.
Yeah,
Like,
of
why
course.
would I spend my valuable coins that are going to, maintain or grow their value for your shitty Oreos? No, I'm
Yeah.
going to buy things that I really need. Like, obviously, I'm going to buy water. Obviously, I'm going to buy meat and whatever else is nutritious. I'm not gonna
Mm-hmm.
buy the bag of Doritos. Like, I would rather save money than buy this crap thing. Like right now, it's like I'd rather get the bag of Doritos. This one is worthless. Whatever. The funny feeling in my mouth of eating this crap soda is worth more than this fiat thing that's gonna go to nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So, uh, I mean, this stablecoin things, it has me, torn apart because I do see the real utility that it has short term. But I
Mm-hmm.
agree with you that it also somewhat perpetuates the fiat thing. And all these people are making a lot of money out of this. Like, let's be honest. Like, what's the business model here? Like, if you're USDT, what's the business model of you getting billions and billions of uh, quote unquote real dollars and you issuing this synthetic thing? Like, you're
Mm-hmm.
obviously using that money. Like, and they, I think they recently said that they proved somewhat that they have fully backed, but it's not backed in cash. It's backed in a lot of things like
Mm-hmm.
equities and properties. Like even if it's fully backed, you're
Mm-hmm.
using those billions to buy properties, to buy real estate, to make money. So at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, these are just traditional finance people making themselves rich out of providing a
A
real
service.
utility, a service which is useful in the short term, in the medium term, but that does not help us move past this shitty system into a
Mm-hmm.
new honest system. So and so that's why I say, even though that's true, I cannot sit here and uh, talk to a person who's finding real utility on this and tell them that they shouldn't be using it. It's like I don't
Yeah.
really know what the answer is, but in Venezuela, a lot of people are using stable coins. And a lot of the success of Binance in Venezuela has been due to USDT and their own BUSD, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of people that I know over there, a lot of people are getting paid now in USDT, and they're very happy
Mm-hmm.
because they couldn't have dollar bank accounts and whatever. And it's like they all play with cryptos and Bitcoin and other cryptos go up and down, but they really prefer to have their things paid in USDT. So what do you do? I don't really
You got
have
to
the
do
answer
it.
to that, but you got to do it. Yeah.
Well, just also, I think that like the fiat system not yet collapsing. That's the real reason why people have, because if you're starting to lose, like it'll be interesting to see, because what happens when you start to lose 15% of your value every year, which is probably what might be happening these days. What happens when it's
Yeah.
20%? What about 30%? At what point do people gonna not, like, who have crypto, going to just be like, I'm not that into the stablecoin thing anymore, or at least not the fiat version of stablecoin anymore? It'll be very
Absolutely.
very interesting to see.
And
But
that's
let
gonna
let
happen. Like that is
yeah.
the breaking point. We're gonna get there, and as I said, it's similar to what I saw happening in Venezuela. Like at the end of the day, everybody wanted dollars, and now the dollar is the new bolivar, and Bitcoin and other
Mm-hmm.
cryptocurrencies are the what used to be the dollar. I like to do this parallel in Venezuela and context.
It's a great
So
experience.
yeah, it's gonna happen. It's gonna collapse. People are gonna take advantage of what they can during the collapse. They're gonna make money. Some people are gonna lose money, but at the end, it's all gonna come down, and hopefully, everybody saves their own ass and can come out the other end
Mm-hmm.
with good savings to live in the new financial system. But yeah,
Yeah, I definitely believe that. Well, this has been a great chat. Where could people find more about you and then your company and the cool stuff you're working on?
absolutely. So
It's shill time.
I'll, yeah. So I'm always tweeting at Lorenzo Rey C. Um, I even started a TikTok recently where I'm going to try to make some videos of living the crypto life here in El Salvador because I think it's
Mm-hmm.
really fun. I just put up a video about 2 weeks ago. It's also at Lorenzo Rey C on TikTok, where I pay my electricity bill or I think the municipal tax here with
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin using Bit Refill. So I will try to put some videos there of living the Bitcoin life. Not I'm very busy with a lot of stuff, so I don't promise a lot of content, but I will try
Mm-hmm.
my best to do that. And yeah, my company is Alter.io. That's
Mm-hmm.
ULTER.io. And I think very soon we could talk about a lot of the things that we're doing with the company here.
Yeah, well, fantastic. Well, thanks very much for being on. Everyone go follow him. He's always a good, insightful person who I think uses Twitter correctly, and then he, tells people, he gives actual like opinions and takes on things, and it's not just like me where sometimes I just shit post or just share my stuff all the time. So he's very very entertaining. He talks a lot about Android phones and stuff too, which is interesting
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
don't.
yeah.
So yeah, so
Uh,
hit him up there. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you guys next week, and yeah, have a good one, guys.